So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Melissa Goslin.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just dig in. I also want to talk a little bit about Film Prize. I love Film Prize Junior. It's really near and dear to my heart. My son did Film Prize Junior a couple of years ago when they first opened it up for middle school. And the change that I saw in that child from doing a project like that. So it's not only about putting together the project, it's about just creating something, but what Film Prize also does is allow people to come together from all over the state, and when the kids show their films and they get to bring like their friends and family, and they're with a group of peers to watch those films, like that's where the really cool stuff happens. That really is. It's an opportunity that most people don't get. Like adults, we have to really kind of claw to be able to show our work and do that. So the fact that it provides that, and just that they get the support from their schools, they really find their people with this. And it's really cool when people from South Louisiana, North Louisiana, they all get together at Film Prize Junior and start talking about their work and they've seen it. It's a really cool thing. So first of all, y'all are awesome for taking this on and for being here today and wanting to learn. I mean, teachers, y'all just needed another thing to do, right? You're just bored, didn't have enough on your plate, so you want to take this on. Just everything that Shadi was talking about is true about Film Prize Junior. It is doable. It's not easy, but it's definitely achievable. And the one thing I love about film as well is that, especially for students, there's something for everyone. There's something, anyone and everyone, no matter what their skill set or interest, there's a place for them on a film set, there's a place for them working on it. Scheduling, writing, which we're gonna talk about, filming, feeding the cast and crew. I mean, being able to put together sandwiches, whatever they're interested in, there's a place for them. So I love that it's inclusive really for anybody that wants to be part of it. So we're gonna talk today, we're gonna define what a story is and how to get started on it. It's one of those things, we all kind of know a story when we hear it, but there are some basic elements. Everything specifically that I'm going to talk about today is also very targeted to you getting your students to the finish line. I mean, we can talk about the theory of story all day, but that's not going to help you when you've got a room full of kids and you're trying to get an idea that will actually translate into a short film. We are going to discover some tips. We're going to talk about focusing that story to make it filmable. Also, how to take it to a screenplay. Screenplays can look, most of us don't sit around and read screenplays. So we're going to talk a little bit, demystify what a screenplay is and what it looks like. And then also, how to shape a story into a documentary film. It's really exciting to me that documentary is also part of Film Prize Junior. They don't let us make documentaries for a big film prize, Chris Lyon, but that's okay. Okay, so what is a story? I've got a lot of English teachers. How many English teachers? Like a lot of you in here. So you know too that like you look at story, you look at a novel and a short story, you look at different forms of story, plays. They all have certain things in common, but the format's a little bit different when we talk about story. I would offer this as kind of the what I work for, that a story is a narrative designed to entertain or instruct. It seems pretty obvious, but I want to break it down a little bit. So the narrative is the what happened. It's the what happened of it. I went to the store to buy milk, but I came home with cinnamon rolls. I mean, that's not very exciting. We don't want to see that movie, do we? Does anybody want to watch that movie? I know I don't. Designed means that we're actually going to shape, we're going to give that story something that then has a purpose to entertain or instruct. So, you know the people that tell a good story, it's like they come back, oh my God, you won't imagine what happened. I went to the store to buy milk. The first store I went to, the refrigerator was out. So all the milk was in the back in a thing, like I couldn't buy it. It was all spoiled. So I went to another store, and you'll never guess what happened there, right? Something else happened, and I couldn't get milk, or they didn't have lactate, because, I'm in my 40s, and I need the lactate. But they didn't have that, so I couldn't get it. So I just bought cinnamon rolls and brought those home so we'd have that. So it gets a little bit more designed. Get a little bit more in depth with it. And then to entertain or instruct, we always need to remember our audience. I think as filmmakers, to some extent, we need to realize that someone's going to be watching this. So are they going to be entertained, or are they going to learn something by it? So how do you find the narrative part of the story? We're going to say use real life as a jumping off point. So what this looks like, I think, as a teacher is just, okay guys, what's an interesting thing that's happened to you? I have this interesting thing that happened to me. When you get together with your family and there's that story you always tell, That story that everybody tells because they just can't get over it and how amazing and funny it was. Let's talk about that story. Would it make a good film? So also headlines, you know, it's always like the CSI ripped straight from the headlines that you see. The kids like that too. Interesting characters. I cannot say that enough, especially with kids, like interesting characters. And we'll talk a little bit more about what makes a character. I've got a sheet in your packet about developing characters, and that's something that the kids can be a little, I'm gonna be honest with you, can be a little bit resistant on because they'll think, oh no, I'm just basing it on Susie. Like I know Susie and I know that, but we're really talking about characters and not real life people when we put it in a film. So being clear on that. Shetty, I think, is passing out this obstacle one on creating obstacles, or brainstorming obstacles. So if you look at that, where he's got that, it's a really simple exercise, but it can be really fun and it can generate a lot of story ideas for you. So like on this first one we have there, a character's cooking dinner for a dinner party. Anybody think, y'all, any obstacles to cooking dinner? What, fire? Yeah, there you go, so fire. What else can go wrong when you're cooking dinner? Power goes out? Was another power goes out? Yeah, so the power goes out while you're cooking dinner. Anything else? Forgot an ingredient. So now you've got to go get an ingredient, you've got to figure it out, whatever. So you just take all these very mundane things can all make really good. Simple is always, I'm going to keep saying simple, simple, simple. Characters working from home trying to meet a deadline. I know y'all can't relate to this one. You're trying to get papers graded. What could possibly go wrong? You're like me, just procrastinate. You're your own worst enemy. But, or a teacher's trying to eat lunch. What could go wrong there? A teacher's trying to get lunch. Like there's 1,000 different things, right, that can keep you from that. So thinking about obstacles, what could get in the way of something? And a lot of times your kids will really surprise you. They'll come up with some really interesting stuff. And then sometimes it's just the simplest, it's usually the simplest answer is what's going to get you to the finish line on this, is the simplest one possible. So extracting these ideas or the narratives with prompts and exercises. Connecting words, vocabulary, this is my favorite thing to do with my kids, is when they come home with their vocabulary words and have to write a story based on their vocabulary words, because you're taking these seemingly, not connected or disconnected words and you're having to put them together. So some fun exercises to do are just everyone has a book or something, they open it up and find one word, kind of the first word that grabs them. You might end up with a list of 10 words and you say, okay, let's connect them together. How can we connect these words in a story? A lot of these things just kind of get the juices flowing for them, getting ideas together. Visual cues, it's one I use a lot in my classes. I might take a picture of a person or an event, just something that looks interesting. Say, okay, tell me the story of this. What's the story? This has, I just saw like a tree that had a big question mark etched in it. What's up with this, right? What's up with that? Let's talk about how could this have happened? How could this have gotten there? Who are the characters? How did this happen? And kids love doing that. Anytime you can get visual, always remembering that film is, we are writing. At the beginning, you're talking about story, but that it is going to be visual. And then what if? What if is a storyteller's best friend? So what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the power goes out? What if, what if someone shows up in the middle of this and interrupts it? What would that look like? So remember, a character must have conflict in order to experience resolution. Really, story is about conflict. It's about someone experiencing conflict. So they want something, your character wants something basic, and there's a conflict. Something is at odds with what they want. Whether that's really simple, your character wants to go outside to the hot dog stand and buy a hot dog, but they can't find their money, then the hot dog stand leaves and goes to the other side of the street, they can't get over there, there's a big line and they have somewhere to be, they're just trying to go get a hot dog. Something like that. So always conflict. Two people having conflict, but really just one character also can have conflict with something that they want. And that's something too you want to make sure with your students. What is the conflict? They need to be able to name all these things. So what is your character? And in that sheet we have, what does your character want? There's also, on the bottom of the obstacles, some creating conflict. So two characters are doing laundry. I know y'all can't imagine. I must be, I feel really old, these examples that I've got, all about laundry and meeting deadlines. But two characters doing laundry, what kind of conflict could they have? They fold differently. I mean, come on, right? Like, they fold differently. Because some people fold their towels like psychos, let's just face it. There's something wrong with people that fold them like in half. I can't take it. I do thirds. So, but what else? Like a different detergent. One wants this. They put the whites in. I mean, they put all the whites in with the stuff, and now all the laundry's pink. I mean, that's something that could happen. And you know, I was watching something the other day that was talking about married people when they're arguing in a movie. They're never actually arguing about what they're arguing, right? So the thing is, like, they fold differently, but they're talking about a lot more, really, right? There's a lot more happening. There's a lot more tension. So that's where knowing that backstory of your character comes into play, because you know how they're going to react and act, and some of that comes out. So then once we have this basic, once you get your basic narrative, okay, this is going to be about a couple folding laundry, and they fold differently, and there's some conflict. How are we going to design that into a short film? Like everything, this is the most important and the simplest. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in a short film, like what you're putting together, most of what you're doing is the middle. So you need to set it up, you need to have the conflict, have them overcome that conflict, and then get out of it. You know, the resolution. So a beginning, a middle, and an end. And your students need to be able to tell you, you know, this is the beginning, this is the middle, this is the end, before you ever get to the script part. This one, really, if you don't hear anything else I say today, I know y'all probably say that as teachers a lot. If you don't hear anything else I say, as my kids would say, this is where the teacher says, this will be on the test. Right to ear access. Being realistic does not hinder creativity, and I want you to really understand that. What you're doing by being realistic and saying, okay, I love that you want to set this on Mars and you want to create your own alien species. I love that creativity, but we can't do that in 50 minutes in the time that we have, right? So what are we going to do that? And you can dig down sometimes and say, but what's at the heart of the story that you want to tell? For example, I'm helping out right now at Robinson Film Center with their education department and helping out with their teen film council. And I have a kid who has a great idea. But it's about Vikings, it's about retired Vikings, it's a period piece, and how Vikings are supposed to die on the battlefield in Valhalla. And I said, okay, well, do you have any 60-year-old actors that you're gonna bring in? And he's like, no. I was like, do you know anyone that's 60 plus, that's your age group? He's, no. I said, okay, so we're gonna have to have a period piece, we're gonna have to have costumes for Vikings, we're gonna have to have, you know, all of this stuff. And one scene takes place in Valhalla. What does that look like? How, I don't have, you know, I can't really call Valhalla cupcakes or something, you know, hey, can we film in there? You know, there's just no place, no way to do that. So it's like we drill down into that. Okay, what's the story? Why does that story appeal to you? Outside of being Vikings, why does it appeal to you? So it was the idea of someone kind of working their whole life and having all this glory, but then at the end of it. So we talked a little bit about like retirement or about what that looks like. And do you have a teacher maybe who'd be willing to play this part of a retired teacher? So we talked a lot about that, and it's like, okay, so you can still take that seed of the idea and just reshape it into something you have access to. So if one of your kids, their parents own a bowling alley, and they say, okay, you can come in here and you can shoot in the bowling alley for free, and we can give you all this time in the bowling alley, please write a story in a bowling alley, right? Like write a story in a bowling alley. If you know the only place you can get your kids together is at school, you're gonna film it in school, but incorporate school. Or maybe you have an area in your school that you could make look like something different. You could take the cafeteria and make it look like a mall food court. Do the kids even know what that is? Is there still a mall food court? I don't know. I'm just like feeling really old today. But you know, take something, be creative with what you have. But always start with what you have. If you know that the actresses you have are all 17-year-old girls, write a story about 17-year-old girls. You know, so write to your access, write to what you have, and get the kids to really understand that. You're not limiting their creativity, you're allowing them to express their creativity, because if they go too big or they don't write to that, they don't have it, the film won't get made. So you're trying to get them to the finish line with that. Keep it simple. Like I said, keep it simple always. The simplest, a character wants something, they can't have it, a couple of things are in their way, and then there's a resolution. But always try to pare it down. I don't think your problem or what you're going to face as teachers is not going to be trying to generate ideas. Trust me, I'm around these kids too, and we talk creative stuff. They have lots of ideas. It's going to be kind of reining those ideas in and saying, picking the ones that you know you can do. So, character types is shorthand. Now, there are a lot of writers who are like just upset right now around the world. They don't know why, because I'm telling you to use character types and to rely on some of these things, on stereotypes. There is a great movie. It's one of Pixar's short animation called Presto. I really recommend all of you watching Presto and get your kids to watch it. It does this beautifully. It is a magician and a rabbit. We all know that relationship, right, between a magician and a rabbit, but we don't think about it. And so the magician wants one thing, the rabbit wants another one. The magician wants to get on stage right now, and he wants to give the carrot to the bunny later. He wants to use it to make him do it. The bunny is going to eat that carrot before he performs, and it makes for a great short film. So, siblings, all kinds of different things. A teacher and a student, siblings, the kinds of relationships that we understand will help you get into that story quickly and easily. Craft an elevator pitch or an log line. With what Shadi just passed out was log lines. So if you look at those, let's see, like this second one, let's see. A fashionable sorority queen is dumped by her boyfriend and so decides to follow him to law school where she figures out there's more to her than just looks. What movie is that? Legally Blonde. So you see how it tells you everything you need to know to identify that movie? Have your kids do this as an exercise. Have them go through these and see which ones they can identify, write them for films that already exist, and then write them for their films. Another great exercise, if you do have a lot of ideas, if you wind up with a lot of ideas, instead of really trying to assimilate them all and make them all, let the kids do pitches. Let them do these pitches. Do like an elevator pitch and say, okay, here's my idea. Give the log line, and this is why we should make that film. And have them convince everybody. Whoever can convince you that's the film that you're going to make that film. And like I said, there's room for everyone to keep writing and to do stuff on the film. So, and it'll just be, the one that everyone's excited about. That's my other note, is you want to make sure you're excited about the movie too, and that this idea is something everyone is really excited to work on, because you're going to be living and breathing this story for a while. So you want to make sure it's something you enjoy. Okay, so some common pitfalls with the story. Confusing concept for conflict. This is something I see a lot, especially with like middle school and high schoolers. So concept is something like aliens land. That's not conflict. Like aliens landing is the concept there. If I'm a small child and I got sent out into to the store because my grandmother needs a medicine and she has to have this medicine, and then aliens land on the pharmacy, now we have conflict because I need something. But just aliens landing or something happening is like the concept of the movie and not the conflict. So you want to make sure you have that. Writing bad dialogue. So it's one of those things, get your kids to really talk out loud to each other. And there are two types. There's a lot you can find out about this, a lot you can look at with bad dialogue. One would be just irrelevant. If they're saying, hey, I love that I'm a student at this school, and the other one's like, yeah, I'm a student at this school too. Like, they're sitting at school. We know they're students at the school, right? Like, they don't have to talk about it. Or if one is saying, I got the school lunch, and the one's like, I like the school lunch too. Cool, yeah. So you like being here? Yeah, I like being here. Great. And then the other one is on the nose dialogue. You don't want them to talk. It's like this art of kind of saying what you mean without saying what you mean. So a good one is, which Star Wars is that? Where they're sitting by the fireplace, that horrible scene, where they're like, I really have a crush on you, and I've loved you for a long time. I didn't know you had a crush on me. I have a crush on you too. It's like no one talks like that, right? So you want to be more like, hey, I like your shoes. Thanks, I like that you like my shoes. Like they kind of talk around things. So dialogue should be a little more like that and have a purpose within the story. Not developing character. So that's the one. You want to go through that character list, really know who the character is, what their backstory is, what their family life is like, even if that, and this is what I would impress on the kids, even if that is not in the context of your story, it is. It's that thing that just makes you write characters that are more believable when you understand who they are, where they're coming from, and how they see the world around them. Then you really have that purpose. And in the log line, you know exactly what they want, what's in the way of what they want, and how you're going to resolve that. And then overcomplicating the plot, you know, having it really, really super convoluted when it just needs to be simple. A shorter movie is always like err on the side of having it shorter. And then that's how it happened. I hear that a lot, but that's not how it happened. Well, we're writing a movie, you know, it's writing, we're designing it, right? So we're not just in the narrative, we're designing it. So that's how it happened. That might work, but we don't have that, or, you know, it's not working within the context of the story. Okay, so what is a screenplay? So now that we talked a little bit about story, and I'm sorry, I wish I could be more specific and say like a story is this, is exactly how you find your story. But it's really, I think all of your kids have amazing stories to tell. It's just like extracting it out of them. And there's so many great resources. Here at Robinson Film Center too, the education department, by the way, I'm here through the end of the year, and Rachel Hansel will be back from sabbatical. They offer screenwriting classes here at Robinson Film Center. They actually come to, I do, or Rachel does, and come to your class for free and talk about screenwriting. Use that resource. Use up that resource. It's a great thing, and it's like a more in-depth version of this. And then if you have a screenplay, they can actually work with what you're doing and like workshop that a little bit with your kids. So a screenplay is a blueprint, is how I think of it. A movie blueprint with a very particular format. And the format is important, as Chris Lyon's going to talk to you about in pre-production. The script gets handed out to all the various departments, and this is how they know what to do, what needs to be done. So it's not just the story, and it is not a precious document. And that's the biggest thing, too, that I would tell writers or tell kids when they're working on it. It's not something that every word is precious. It is a living, breathing document, and it is for a collaborative art. Film is a collaborative art, which is what makes it wonderful. And then also, it's the source of information for various departments. So you've got your production design, people that are going, okay, what does this room need to look like? I need to decorate this like the 1970s, or we're in a futuristic roller disco, or Xanadu, really, the old references today. Okay, so here is what a screenplay looks like. So if you look, I have one of those in there as well, this page, so you can take it back with you. We've got this first part is the slug line or the scene heading, and that tells you where you are in the world. So interior or exterior, where you are, day or night. A room of awesome teachers sit at large round tables at an in-service about filmmaking. At the front, an instructor, 40s, who can't find her reading glasses, even though they're on her head, passes out papers. So you see there, I've got the slug line, the character description. Every time you mention a character, the first time they're mentioned, they're in all caps. Again, these are rules, these are kind of guidelines. If your kids don't follow these, the main thing is, if everyone knows how to find what they need out of the script, they've done a good job for this. You know, so don't worry so much about getting it perfect or having the script perfect. It's kind of like the English language. You know, it's there to convey information. And so as long as that information is conveyed and everyone who needs to can find what they need, they're doing a great job. The characters are just centered there, the character name with their dialogue. Notice there's no quotations, there's no flowery anything. It's like poetry, very, very few things that you need in a script. It's technically not cheating, so here's a screenwriting cheat sheet you can use back in your class. We have a strict no cheating policy. It's technically not cheating. That's our dialogue there. The transition you'll see, the cut to and back to, you don't need to use those very sparingly. If it just switches from scene to scene, there's no need to do that. We know we're going somewhere else. This is sort of a flash forward or flashback, a move in time. So it's got to cut to another scene and then it comes back to that area. Kids really like this technique a lot, you know, in a lot of like younger film styles, some of the stuff that they watch where someone's talking and they go, oh, you know, and then it flashes somewhere else and we see something that happened a long time ago, or it's just in an alternate time somehow. So in transition, what that does also is help you know, help the reader be able to stay grounded in what they're reading. Location descriptions, like here we have interior teacher's lounge. It says the PTA has obviously been on Pinterest because this usually depressing space looks like a winter wonderland. So what that's going to do is talk to your production department and tell them what they need to go shopping for some Christmas ornaments, or they need to see if everybody can get together some Christmas ornaments because it's going to be decorated that way. So what you'll see there too is with the characters, the descriptions need to be character types, not really physical descriptions are what we're talking about, but what type of character they are, because that's going to help your actor know what they need to do or how they can prepare for it. Okay? And then the parentheticals down at the bottom when someone's speaking, if they're in a group and someone's just doing an aside to someone else, you can put that person there. If that's where your adverbs go, I always say, like if they're speaking slowly, softly, something like that. But again, you can use those sparingly, only when it's just really crucial for it to be in there. Okay, so that's really all I have about narrative filmmaking. Does anybody have any questions about that before we delve into documentary a little bit? Or everybody good with that? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about documentary, our last little bit. And there's a page too on documentary, a little bit of something for y'all to take back with that's in the packet. And notice I say not write, but develop a documentary. It's a little bit of a different thing. However, it's very important to understand that documentaries don't have scripts. You don't have to script out your documentary, but they do have stories. And it is the same basic thing that we've been talking about with narrative. Ideally, there's a main character, there can be conflict, there's some beginning, middle, and end. They're going to be shaped into that same format to watch a story. So find a subject that you're curious about. You know, if there's a subject that your students are curious about, you can say, okay, let's look more into that. Researching the subject to find the most interesting and accessible way to tell the story. How are we going to be able to tell this story? What's our way into the story, if that makes sense? So it's, you want to tell the story, they want to do a documentary about bullying. Okay, bullying, it's a very worthwhile subject. It's a huge topic, right? It's a big topic. How are we going to tell that story and not just be like every other story that's been told, or just like we're in Wikipedia talking about bullying? We're going to find someone who maybe was bullied. Maybe someone started an organization. We're doing it about an anti-bullying campaign. So we find this person that was bullied or their child was bullied, and they started this as a result of that. So that's interesting, and that's our way in to tell the story of bullying. So you're telling a specific story, but you're broadening it out to be about something bigger. Narrow the focus the same way you would with a narrative film. So that same thing of, you know, kind of keeping it simple, making it about one person and their experience, and then it tells the larger story. So if we tell one person's experience with bullying, it opens it up for other people to relate to it. And then arranging the story with the beginning, middle, and end. So you want to have an outline and an idea of what you're going to say, but you also want to keep that loose because as you go through the interviewing process and research, you might find things that don't quite fit. The story might go a little bit of a different direction, but you at least want to have an idea when you're getting started on a documentary of where we're going to start, what's the middle of the story, and where are we going to wind up? What do we want to say about this? Because you have not only the story, but as a filmmaker, you have your point of view. What do you want to say about the topic or about that you're filming is also on there. Tools. So your A-roll, which I don't know if you've heard these terms before. A-roll, primary footage that's going to tell it, interviews, dialogue, all of those things that you're going to have that's your primary footage. Most of them, I would imagine, would be interviews. And then B-roll, these are all the details and visuals that help you tell the story. You want a lot of this. So if you're interviewing somebody, you get footage of all the things happening in their office. If someone that works with their hands, you want detail shots of them looking at things. Watch some documentaries, you know, watch a lot of documentaries and see these different things and know these components that you need. Shots from outside, if it's inside a factory, all the people working, all the things happening wherever they are. Archival footage, so that would be anything that's filmed for other purposes that helps tell your story. If you have someone that has any kind of childhood family movies or photos, that kind of thing, would all be in your archival footage. So really, you collect all these things with a documentary, and then you shape them in the editing process into that beginning, middle, and end that you want to tell as a story. So a few tips. Listen to your subject. We also have some on the sheet. I have a little bit different information on the sheet with some do's and don'ts for interviewing. That's something I really recommend if you're gonna do documentary, is prepping the kids, making sure they interview each other, maybe prep that before. Because they wanna be prepared, but they don't wanna just read off their list. They also wanna engage. A lot of times there's great follow-up questions and that really become the meat of a documentary. So listening to your subject, using all those elements of storytelling, protagonist, conflict resolution, all of those when you put it together. Music and things that enhance your story are always great, so you wanna be thinking about those resources. I'm sure Prize has great lists of that and can point you in the right direction for stock photos, stock footage, stock music. There's lots of stuff on the internet that you can get. And then creating a schedule, and then allowing plenty of time to edit, especially for a documentary, because that's really, like I said, where that's going to be shaped. So you want to make sure and do that. So does anybody have any questions? That's really all I have for you slide-wise. I hope that was enough information, that it wasn't too simple for you, but that it was simple, that it shows you, like, I really think this is doable, and anybody, our math teachers, which, good on you being here.
Can you share that PowerPoint?
Yeah, so this workshop is panel being recorded, and all the resources you're going to today, including stuff in the packet, and both panels here, this one and the next one, will be available by tomorrow for you to share with you and your students.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? So does everybody, are y'all at the beginning of this? Raise your hand. Have you ever done a film for Film Prize Junior before? Or raise your hand if you haven't, I guess. If you've not done a film. Whoa, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, right? For being here with that, for doing this for the kids, like I said, I can't say enough about Film Prize Junior. I had a kid who was, just not in a good place. Was just not in a good place and went through this process, and it really turned him around, and I think it can do that for so many of your students, and I think it can be a really fun process for y'all as well. So good luck. Let us know. Like I said, reach out to the Robinson, reach out to Film Prize, reach out to people, and get those kids to the finish line. They'd rather have something, I can guarantee you, they'd rather have something than nothing at the end of it. They would rather have something, even if it's shorter and it's not exactly what they anticipate. All of them think they're gonna make a Marvel movie. Can I just, all of them at the beginning of this are like, yeah, and then we're gonna go, and we're gonna all be on wires, and we're gonna do these tricks. And it's like, yeah, we could film it in the gym, or in the cafeteria. So let's come up with something. So, but at the end of the day, it's about a finished product. It's about something that they will be incredibly proud of, and that you'll be able to come and sit with them at art break and watch their thing, and it's gonna be amazing. So good luck, and Viva. Do y'all say Viva for Film Prize Junior? Okay, so Viva.